Hello and welcome to Overcome a Mental Health Podcast, a place where you can share your mental health stories. I'm very excited for today's guest. I will be speaking with Massimo Rigotti. He is the creator of the Sober Method. And without further ado, I'm just going to have him jump straight into his story and kick us off on his journey.
Hey, thank you so much for having me this evening, Travis. This is just awesome, and I'm really looking forward to our conversation. So let me just give you the wild background of me in a very short order. So I originated in Lincoln, Nebraska, and I had what most kids would describe as a pretty charmed life. I excelled in a lot of areas, but things just weren't quite right. And I never really understood why, but I pushed through, as a lot of kids do. And as I got into my late teen years, I was having some struggles. But again, going to mom and dad going, hey, I sometimes I just don't feel good. And like, well, you'll have days like that. And I didn't realize at the time, and I get off to college, is that I was almost immediately diagnosed with bipolar disorder. And I didn't want to think that there was anything wrong with me because, of course, I've been raised this whole time to say, there's nothing wrong. People get down sometimes. It's no big deal. But what I did notice is that if I drank a little, I could take care of this bipolar thing real easy. I could knock it back down anytime that it popped up. And so that started my 20-year relationship with alcohol, and it only climbed from there. So I was in college. I was doing well, but yeah, it just wasn't exciting enough for me. And I think that that's kind of the vibe of having bipolar disorder, is that, you need a little bit more excitement. And so I went for it and started my life as a lifelong entrepreneur. And that had me going all over the place and working in industries from banking to telecom to tech to entertainment to printing and publishing. And just any time that things weren't quite the way I liked them, I would just shut my business down or sell it and move on to something else. And of course, everybody just thought I was a little interesting that I would want to do that. But actually, those were all signs that I was struggling with my own set of depression and my bipolar disorder. This is how it actually presented itself to the world. Everybody else just thought, well, he just wanted to do something else. Well, not really. I got really depressed about the work I was doing. I was like, I can't do this anymore. I got to get on to something else. That was what was really going on inside my head. And so as I proceeded through all this, eventually the alcohol just started continuing, but things really got off the rails when I ended up in Los Angeles working in the entertainment business, because it started out drinking in the morning at breakfast with a client, then having a liquid lunch, then drinking on set someplace, then going out after work and networking at a bar or club. And before you know it, you're drinking 24 hours a day. And how do you do that? You can't keep going. Well, in the great underworld of Los Angeles, there's plenty of white powder laying around. And that's when I started my sidecar of cocaine and alcohol, which then lasted for about the next 8 years until I found my sobriety. And I was a functioning alcoholic. Nobody really knew that anything was truly wrong, but things started to just get too much. The alcohol consumption had risen to about a handle of Jack Daniels a day. For those of you who don't know, that's about 1.5 liters of hard alcohol daily that I was consuming. And that's a lot. And I could not function without alcohol in my life. And when you reach that point, things start falling apart. I hit it pretty well. And then ultimately, I just had it all come crashing down within the course of about 2 years, when I ended up homeless and I was on the street for 16 months. I found my sobriety, and here I am 9 years later, sober. And yeah, that's my short story.
That's great, though, like, because you're here today. So
Yeah.
I always like to hear of stories where people just were able to get up off their feet and turn their lives around. So would you say that the homelessness was basically your turning point to being like, I need to get better? I need to do something?
Yeah, it definitely was a turning point. But when it first happened, though, I'll tell you, I was like, this homeless stuff isn't half bad. And I'm not even kidding, because I had no responsibilities. I'd spent my entire adult life, running companies and always being the guy in command. And suddenly I didn't have any responsibilities other than making sure that I tried to remain drunk at all times, because that was my only driver in life, was must remain drunk. And that is not a good thing to be trying to do every day, but I managed to do it. And it really was the catalyst of Samantha Thomas, who I happened to meet in March of 2014, randomly on a beach. I was on a trip with a bunch of friends, and we met, and we were just like instantly each other's people. And she was the one who, on the first day we met, she goes, I don't know why you drink all the time, because I think you'd be awesome without the alcohol. And that stuck. That was like, who are you? And why are you trying to tell me that I shouldn't be drinking, you know? But I took it to heart. And when I became homeless, we exchanged letters, because I didn't even have enough money for a phone. So I had a P.O. box, and she'd write me letters and ask me questions, and I'd write back. And it was like having a psychiatrist by mail, if you can imagine such a thing.
Yeah.
And that became my motivation, because at the time it's like, I have to get better so I can actually see this person I really like, you know, and I can't see her anymore because I'm homeless. I have nothing. And ultimately that's what became the catalyst to have me stand up sober.
That's crazy. This some stranger you meet saying, "Oh, you need to stop drinking."
Yeah.
It's like, and I don't know if you necessarily believe in this type of stuff, but I'm a big believer that like the universe does bring stuff to you, and I wondered if that was just one of those moments.
It was, without a doubt. And I'll tell you why it is without a doubt, because she had her own story and missing and had her own like near death experience, where 2 years prior to us meeting, she was spared in a car accident because she had switched places in seating with someone else like 2 minutes before an accident ultimately happened. And the person who was seated where she was seated before they got back on the interstate died. And so she felt like she was on borrowed time. And her feeling was is that there was something she was supposed to do before she died, because ultimately this is where it gets tragic. And the reason I do what I do today is that in 2020, she was actually killed by a drunk driver. So the person who helped save me and bring me to sobriety ultimately was killed by someone who was a drunk.
That's crazy. Like, what are the odds of that? Like, just thinking of it out loud, like, really, what are the odds? It's insane because she did this really good thing, and then it happens to be the same thing that she sees her tragic end.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So if that doesn't make you believe in the universe or God or whatever you might believe in, there definitely are forces at play in everyone's life.
And so, how long did that like relationship last? Was that like a even after you were sober type thing? Like you,
Yeah, we remained in touch, and after I got sober, and we continued to write letters, of all things,
that's
which was really kind of awesome. Even though we occasionally would talk on the phone, it was the letters that were just instrumental in continuing that relationship.
that's actually really cool, a really cool story. And it always like I love hearing things like that. Just like gives me the chills.
Yeah, I know. When I tell the story, it's almost unbelievable. And had I not lived it, it would be difficult to believe that something so random came together to actually save me.
Yeah, and so when you initially lost her, did that experience threaten your sobriety, or did it just strengthen your commitment to it?
It's really interesting because everyone around me, I think I went on to like suicide watch with all of my friends, and or he's going to drink again, because the outpouring from everyone was like, are you okay? Do you want to come over and do you want to do this? You're not drinking, right? You know, all of those questions came up. I never once thought about taking a drink. My mindset almost immediately went to, I can't possibly drink again because I have to honor her life. And that's where the motivation started. Because before this, you know, I was going to AA straight out of being, you know, sober and thinking, oh, this is great. And you're there. And I realized that this just isn't, I was like 2 years sober, and I'm just, this is it. I'm going to go to these meetings and I'm going to talk about how I used to do all these things all the time. And I didn't feel fulfilled like inside. And so I went looking for something better. And that's when I created what originally was the flavors of confidence method. And I just created my own method. I'm like, wonder if I could like do a continuous, improvement cycle on myself. And then over time, that became the sober method, which is stoic, observe, behavior, execute, and restore. And it works in this continuous improvement method where you like find something about yourself and you work to correct that. And then you do something else and you continue to go back and get smaller and smaller and smaller until the things you're trying to correct are like very minute. And you're like, I wonder, I get these weird ideas after doing this so many times myself, because I'm way up I'm right now, this is my 131st cycle of my own method right now. And so you're down into this minutia of like, I wonder if I could react better when a cashier were to say,
Mhm.
yeah, those are the points that I'm at now. So it has really, really helped. But I had framed all this up and I started talking to others about it while Samantha was still alive. And she said, you should really write a book. You should write a book about your experience, what your life's been like and the struggles you went through, and then like end it with this method. I was like, oh, that's a good idea. But I never did anything about it. But the moment that she was killed, I started writing the next day. Really, it's been a journey since then to turn it into what is going out and trying to tell everyone that, hey, look, this is a great alternative to AA if that is not working for you.
That's really cool. It seems like she just pushed you to be a better version of yourself.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. She challenged me in ways that I probably never challenged myself. And I'm not someone that takes well to people telling me what to do, but she had a particular way about her that no one else has really had mastered before. It just with the subtlety of being able to encourage me to do things and to then ultimately execute on it. She had a talent. She knew how to get the best out of me.
Isn't it funny that like certain personalities you can't stand that, and then her, it's just
Yes.
like there's this thing like, yeah, you can do that.
Yeah, I know. It's wild. And it's so great when you find that. Occasionally you get pieces of that in some people, but to have it that it applied across all aspects of my life, yeah, she was a unique individual.
Yeah, yeah. Most of the time, it's kind of like one of those things. Like, yeah, I don't want to take advice from you. Who are you to be giving advice?
Yeah, I know. Exactly. And again, she was 20 years younger than me. So it even was further like, oh, why would I take any advice from you at all? So,
So, if kind of probably a personal question, but if you could speak to her today, that Samantha, you said her name was,
mhm,
what would you say to her?
that's a good question. I would probably say, Sammy, thank you for believing that there was better in me than what I was showing the world. Yeah. That would probably be the first thing I said to her because she believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, that's awesome because I think that we all need that. Like any challenge in life, whether it be mental health or anything, like we all need someone to believe in us because there's, as dealing with someone who deals with mental health, you know that there's going to be those days you don't believe in yourself, probably more days than not.
Yeah, and my bipolar, that was the thing that she was most interested in. She was psych major and then ultimately an MD. She was actually planning to be a neurosurgeon. She was very interested in the mind, and so she always liked going into these like mind experiments, so to speak, with me and asking me, well, why do you think that particular way, and what does this, and how come that presents this way when you're depressed, and yet when you're not depressed, you think something entirely different. She really liked digging into that sort of stuff. It was fascinating to her, and I was willing to indulge her in trying to figure out my own thinking. Um, and I think that patience really helped a lot because it allowed me to be okay with the fact that I suffered from bipolar disorder. I mean, do suffer from bipolar disorder. Um, yet, because I've generally always been more in the up than in the depressed. But my depression is like so bad. Like when it hits me, it has generally been like 2 days of I cannot move or leave bed. I am just like completely don't want to do anything. It is horrible.
And so when you're going into one of those moods, whether it's like you're up really high or down low, like, do you know that you're in the middle of an episode, or is it not known to you?
Think I've figured it out now, but when I was younger, I didn't. I knew when I was in a mania when I was younger because I suddenly couldn't control how fast I was thinking, and my thoughts would get ahead of my words, and then everything would start to get jumbled when I was speaking. And I've had to teach myself to slow down my speech so that and try to align it with my thinking. And I've taught myself to do that over time. That wasn't like natural when I was younger, but I do definitely feel them today. I can tell you, I might be getting depressed. There's some interesting things that I have started to do that can seem to cut off a depression mood. Like if I feel something like that coming on, I usually know it about a day in advance, and I will go buy a dark chocolate bar and eat the whole thing. And for some reason, that will like level it out just enough that I will not go into a deep depression. I'm not saying that like I am not a medical doctor,
Yeah,
but I'm
that's
telling you that there's something there that actually I start to get a craving for it and I go eat one and I'm okay.
and what do you think that thing is? Do you think it's like some chemical that's in it, or do you think it could be like possible dopamine hit? Like,
I
who
think it's
knows?
who knows, but I mean there is some evidence that chocolate can have an impact on mood, but it could be the dopamine hit as well. Because as someone who used to use cocaine on a regular basis, I can tell you right now that that's the best antidepressant you'll ever find.
Yeah, I've never personally tried, but I can only imagine from what I've been told and heard.
Yeah, I mean it is. I mean sugar has almost the same amount of as cocaine does on your brain in terms of the stimulus, but one would argue that sugar's not as addictive, and I would argue
Yeah.
it.
I actually had a guest on the show that came on, and she said that sugar is the gateway drug, and people don't understand how addictive it really is.
Yeah. Well, I believe it. I really do. I've cut sugar almost entirely out of my diet. And that was one of the things that Sam really wanted to work on and did, and it became part of the sober method, which diet is a big part of it, which is trying to cut back on the sugars because sugar seems to have a negative impact on bipolar, but it also seems to have, as you said, it seems to be this gateway. Of course, she didn't phrase it that way. She just said that the sugar seems to act as some sort of, you become reliant upon it, and then you crave it the same way you crave other things. And eliminating that kind of craving is important to steady the mind. So I mean, like whatever it is, it definitely worked. And I've also cut back quite a bit on the processed foods. Ultra processed, completely gone. Processed, it's significantly gone. I make almost everything that I can, including all my sauces and everything. You want ketchup? I make it from scratch.
That's awesome. And just out of curiosity, how long has it taken you to remove all that processed food from your life?
It's taken, once I actively tried to start doing it, it's taken me 5 years. Yeah.
It's yeah, because I've tried to do somewhat of the same thing now, and it's just such a work in progress or whatever.
Yeah.
And there's days like there's days where I still like crave that sugar or that candy bar. I'm
Yeah.
finally, apart from like craving like a ice cold Pepsi or Coke, but
Yeah. I tell you what, you
it's
saying that,
work.
I can like taste Coca-Cola in my
Yeah.
mouth right
I
now.
just ruined it for you.
you know, uh, you can't avoid really going out to eat at least at some point, but I avoid that almost entirely as well. But I'm also not that guy is like, I will not go out to eat. We're going to, I don't make anyone around me suffer, and I don't go to a restaurant and be like, I can't eat here because of XYZ. No,
Yeah.
I just go ahead and eat. Now I feel it. I pay for it because I can actually feel it drag my mood down. It has that much of a significance. Now, 3 or 4 years ago, I couldn't feel it, but I went out to eat last Monday on Cinco de Mayo with a friend, and I felt it for the next 2 days. I just didn't, I felt sluggish. And it's really wild to think that it could have that much of an impact on your body.
Oh, no, that is for sure. Because even the bits and pieces that like we've done as a family, going out to eat sometimes, I just feel sick afterwards. And I was like, well, it's because we didn't eat garbage for the whole week before. And now
Yeah.
we are. You
Yeah.
really feel it.
Yeah. Yeah. Isn't that wild? So
Uh-huh.
it just tells you that maybe you should not eat the garbage. I mean, but
Yeah.
you tell people that, and they don't believe you because they're stuck. They eat it all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. They, one person looked at me like, laughed, like, really? You're eating that way? And it's like, you should try it.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
don't laugh at me until you try it. Like, it does make a difference.
It does. And to tie that all back into the bipolar disorder for me, and as we were talking just before we went live, I have only had this past year, I've only had 1 day of significant depression. 1 day. And to take that from where it used to be probably cumulatively a month a year where I was just completely locked up and couldn't do anything, that is so amazing to me. And also, the mania still happens. I'm not going to lie. I don't mind mania because I get a lot done.
I've heard that before.
So, I mean, like if I could turn
Crazy.
mania on and off, that would be awesome. But I haven't figured that skill out yet. But when it happens, I'm like, okay, great. I'm going to get a lot done for the next 2 days. But it's also tamed those as well. I've had fewer spells of mania as well. So I feel more leveled out. And what has not happened that happens with, I don't know, the audience, there's probably plenty of people who are on antidepressants. But one thing that was always horrible for me is that it felt like it limited any creative thought for me. And I always kind of felt like someone had a thumb on my brain, like, how dare you think about anything other than what you have to do next? It's just very mechanical thinking is how you get. And you don't have any sort of flights of fancy about what might be. And that's difficult for me because I'm a creative thinker. So I really struggled with that. And I can have that and not go way off the deep end and spiral into a mania now is so refreshing. It really is.
That's really cool. What other, like dealing with your bipolar, and what other techniques other than diet, were there any other techniques or methods that helped you out?
Yeah, I also think that exercise really helped, and ultimately weight loss. I mean, I weighed about 40 pounds more than I do now when I started my whole sober method program. And I mean, I do something that is wild for someone my age. And I decided that I was going to become a competitive figure skater 3 years ago. And I can tell you that probably has changed my life more than anything for probably two reasons. One, I am in fantastic shape. I mean, when I can go out and skate with those that are in, their late teens and show up the hockey players, I feel pretty good about myself because I'm turning 50 this year. So if I can do that, I'm feeling pretty good. And so it's done that. So, and that's also like a good confidence boost. But the other thing is that it's just like it also, that weight loss helped me get better sleep. It helped me which then gave me clearer thinking when I was awake. And I really just feel like I'm firing on all cylinders. And so I think that the combination of, I mean, it sounds cliche to say it, of course, but diet and exercise are actually important to overall health. And I think, and it doesn't take much. When I first started out, this was, you know what? I should maybe exercise a little bit. When could I fit that in my day? I'm not lying. This is how my exercise plan started. So I got up in the morning, I would make tea. I was like, I could probably do some push-ups while this tea is the water is boiling. So I would just do push-ups. And I was like, I bet I could do some sit-ups too. And so then that became the push-ups and sit-ups. And then it was jumping jacks. And then before you know it, I do like 15 exercises while the tea, I turn it lower and lower so I can fit more in, was going every morning. And so then that became my morning routine. And so without thinking about it, I do like this 15-minute high intensity workout every morning before my tea's ready.
That's awesome. I need to get better at the exercise side of things. That's one place right now where I shouldn't say kind of, I really do lack.
Yeah.
Like I start for a bit and then It's like I just don't do it because I have plenty of time during the day, like on my breaks and stuff, that I could do something to help better myself that way. So I just need to get, I guess, build that habit.
Yeah, I mean, it's like anything. It's like getting up and making your bed in the morning or whatever, which is something I always stress in a lot of my talks is that, always make your bed. Get up, make your bed. If it's the first thing you do, it's your first small win of the day. Everything's going to go great from there. But I mean, the first thing I do almost immediately after making my bed is I'm like right into doing push-ups or doing some sort of calisthenics, which is nuts, but it also gets your brain going, your blood flow is going, you're like going right away. And because everybody kind of makes the argument like, I don't know when I would have time to work out. Well, you know what? I never go to the gym. I hate going to the gym. I haven't had a gym membership since I was in my 20s because it's just like, you have to go there, number one. So that's a pain, right? That's like,
Yeah.
well, I'll go tomorrow. You know what I mean? You could talk yourself out of it really easy, but you can't talk yourself out of the wood floor that's like right out there in front of you, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I remember this is, well, say something about me. I remember to some coworkers once, they're like, "Hey, Trav, we're going to the gym. Do you want to come?" I said, "No, I'm on what was it, a 7-year thing of not going to the gym. I don't want to ruin that."
Oh man, I've got this great stretch of not going, you know. I wouldn't want to ruin
Don't
that.
want to ruin that.
That's great. Oh man.
But like I said, I do need to get better, just like exercise around the house.
I think that, you can make it like into a
I,
gamify it or something for yourself. And I had to do that when I first started, but now it's like habit. It's like if I start going and I don't do it, I'm like, crap, I forgot to, and I like immediately will
turn
then
around, yeah,
turn around
because
and do
it's
it.
like ingrained in your brain to like, I have to do this.
Well, isn't life at the end of the day, isn't just a series of habits if you think about your daily routine?
Yes, for sure.
Yeah. So,
So somebody that's struggling with addiction or mental health, what advice do you give them?
well, the very first thing that when I talk with somebody that I just meet, it's like, hey, I'm struggling, is I immediately ask them like, well, why do you want to get better? And oftentimes people will say, well, all these external things. I want to do this for my grandson, or I want to do this for my wife, or and if somebody's saying all that, they haven't done the hardest work, which is they've got to look within. I mean, like the will to get better has to come from inside. When I was on the street, I knew that everybody wanted me to get better because they told me that all the time. They'd come find me on the street. Hey, what are you doing out here? You could be doing a lot better than this. And I'd be like, I know, but until I decided, did it get actually better? So the first thing that I recommend for those that haven't got to that point yet is start journaling. Start asking yourself, why are you taking that drink when you're taking it? I mean, like, what's going on in your head? Why are these things happening? And as you look back and read your answers to those questions, more often than not, you're going to see something that's common, that is like, that's your trigger point. This is something that's bothering you. And once you figure that out, you're like, maybe I should correct that. Now you're ready to get sober. Now you're ready to take that next step. So I think that self-reflection is just so huge. And it is for the long-term correction as well. Most everybody that I have worked with, as a matter of fact, I don't know that I can think of a single person that I can't say this about. It's tied to one particular thing that has transpired in their life in terms of addiction that has just snowballed out of control, and the addiction is covering that pain. And once you discover what that pain is and then tackle it head on, it's pretty easy to stay sober.
That's huge because I feel like that's what it was for me.
Really?
Uh, yeah, was actually I back in 2009,
Mm-hmm.
I started suffering from seizures, and there's some hospital stays, lots of tests being done, and I started getting really bad anxiety and depression. I actually dissociate once in a while and forget who I am, forget where I'm going. I might wander off. This happened for years and years, but I didn't want to admit that I had a problem. And it put my marriage off I was actually engaged for 10 years because I couldn't hold down a job. But then everything kind of, at some point, just slowly started getting better, but I still didn't get the help that I needed. And so this last year, I had another spout up, and the seizure just kind of died down. I was still having like anxiety and some deep, dark depression, but I just never did anything about it until this last year. And I think I finally just had a moment where it's like, you know what? I'm married. I have 3 kids. I need to get myself better. I don't need to do it
Awesome.
for them. I need to do it for myself so I can be here for them. As right as I admitted that I had that problem, that's when I was like, okay, it made it easier for me to change my diet, made it easier for me to get on medication, made it easier for me to start seeing a therapist. So I
That's
applaud you for
awesome.
saying that. It's was insane. Like it's a just that moment where it's like, yep, I need to do this for me.
That is so incredible. What a great story. That's awesome, Travis. Good for you.
Yeah. I applaud you for bringing that up because that's one of the things that I will stand by is you need to look within yourself.
Yeah, and you know what? It's the hardest thing to do. And I mean, I'm sure you can agree. You just told a story where you clearly exhibited that it was the hardest thing for you to do because you went almost a decade of trying to deflect from
Yeah.
actually that hard thing.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's really cool. That's powerful stuff.
Yeah. And my then fiance, now wife, she would say, you need help. You need help. Like, but I just didn't see it like she did. I thought I was okay.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. So with your like recovery and stuff, and just everything you went through, like how did it change your perception like on business and that like side of things in your life?
Oh, that's an excellent question. Well, I tell you, the one thing that it really brought into clarity for me is that the opinion of others matters so little in life that you should almost never take it. That your gut and your heart has a better measure of what's right for you than anything. And we spend so much time worried about what others think about us and worried about how others might perceive things that we're doing, that oftentimes we don't take the correct actions we need in our own lives to make sure that we're doing what's right for us. And in saying that, it applies to business because when you're running a business or you're looking at how you're interacting in any business decision, you start to really pull back and say, well, hold on a second. Am I trying to do this because I want this particular vendor to have a better view of me? And if that's the case, why am I doing that? I need to be rethinking this. And so I've made a lot better decisions and my in my business life and I've excelled much more than I did before when I was drunk because I stopped relying on all the outside forces in my life. And I think that if more people took that to heart and really thought about first themselves, because if you can't take care of yourself, you can't take care of anyone else. So your opinion of what's going on in your world, that has to be 100%. Okay, now once you have that, okay, now we can talk about taking care of your spouse. Now we can take about taking care of your kids. Then we can look beyond the family. It's like, who's in the community can we help? But if this person right here is not at 100%, you can't get any further. And what's really wild is that I spent a good portion of my life worried about like everyone else out in the community and how I was going to help them. And meanwhile, I was just completely this fragile little element that if anybody said anything, it would like tense me up and I would get hurt by these words and it wasn't a good way to live my life. And of course that would cause me to drink because I'd be like, I'm stressed because this guy just told me that I'm not capable of doing something. Why? Why do I care? That guy can't, that guy's barely holding it together, but I let it impact me. And the second that I did that, my own personal confidence is so much higher that it allows you to make decisive moves in your life and you believe what you're doing is right with the confidence that others will follow you. And as you do that, those that are around you, your family, your friends, and everything see that, and they want to be a part of it. And it's very empowering for the people around you when you exude that level of confidence.
That's really cool. And it just goes back to what another thing I've realized in this last year is you can't live for other people. You have
Yeah.
to live for yourself.
Yeah. And you know what? We live in a kind of a world today where so often we're told that that's selfish, but I don't think it is a selfish way to be, because if you're not completely healthy yourself, then you don't have anything to give anyone else. I mean, only when you're like overflowing can you possibly, provide well anyway. I mean, you can provide when you're empty, but it's not inequality. There's no quality to the giving at that point, right?
Yeah. And it's like when I'm working in this last year when I was having my really bad seizures
Mm-hmm.
and when I was working those days and just feeling down and however I was feeling, I could totally tell you that my productivity level was so down and I wasn't getting anything done compared to now. Like, go ahead,
Yeah.
you were going to say something.
So are these presented like, are these just like incredible anxiety is what's causing the onset of the seizure? Is that how they're
No,
presented, or?
now I'm not sure because I was diagnosed with what's called psychogenic non-epileptic seizures,
Okay.
where before I was diagnosed with epilepsy as well. The difference is the psychogenic seizures, they're not actually coming from my head.
Mm-hmm.
Like the way that they're present themselves are a little bit different. The signs and auras are a little bit different.
Okay.
So anti-seizure medication will actually not help with them. And they say that it's most of the time they're trauma related. So I've been seeing a therapist, but I still relate it back to like the moment I changed my diet
Huh?
is, and like a month after, that's when I felt like my body start being at ease and be like, you know what? Like, I think it was these last ones where my body saying like, something's got to give. We're done with the garbage you're putting it.
Well, that's it. That's incredible. So, we're both sitting here with stories of how diet and cutting back processed foods has helped both of our
Yeah.
mental challenges. Yeah, that's
Hmm.
wild.
Yeah. It's really crazy.
So, I guess everyone listening, maybe you should try it too.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh, I would be lying if I said to not try it because it's like, and I'm not saying I'm perfect because I love donuts and stuff, but it's it's little baby stepping stones for me.
Oh yeah, I mean, like I'm telling you, my first step when I was like, you know what, I'm going to start. I already like made most of my meals at home, but my first step into like I'm going to start making stuff at home that is not ultra processed, because bread, check out the label, is ultra processed. So that was my first step into. And everybody's like, baking bread takes so long, and I'm like, not really. I mean, you put the dough together, you let it rise, you put it in the oven, you walk away for an hour, you come back, you take it out. I mean, like, what's so difficult about making
Yeah.
bread? And so then I did that, but I don't even eat that much in the carbs anymore. But so I bake like one loaf of bread every like 10 days. But I tell you what, that bread is a lot better than the bread at the store.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny. Like, speaking of diet, my mother in law is keto friendly.
Okay.
And I call it the hunter gatherer diet because there's so little that she can eat. And it's, but it's funny because it's like at the same time, so we go and eat at her house like almost every Sunday.
Hmm.
And so I call that my keto cleanse day.
That's
And
awesome.
just because it's like, I know it's healthier food and I'm going to come back feeling a little bit different than if I eat a regular meal that I would eat. But, and I'm not saying it's bad food. It's
No,
just
no.
some of it's like prep different and stuff because there's no sugar.
Right. Yeah, exactly. But again, like we were talking earlier, that sugar has a significant impact,
Yeah.
and you feel it when you come back from that
Yeah.
meal. Like,
But the funny thing is so she's been on that for years now. The funny thing is now I'm trying to get rid of all that sugar. So Maybe it's just preparing me for what is today, right?
Yeah, yeah. No, I think that the most important thing that I can share on any of this is that it's small, measurable steps. And I say it all the time. You can't just go out there and like suddenly be a decade sober. I mean, those first few days, I had 8 relapses that were like, and some of them were just horrible. Like the roller coaster at the very end before I finally said enough already. I went like completely drunk out of my mind for like 2 days, and then I would try to sober up again, and that is like gut wrenching. There, it will rip your stomach apart, and then you're throwing up. You can't. I mean, like you're just. It's not good. And then I'd be like, "Oh, that was fun. Let's do it again." And it, like I completely forgot what just happened the previous 5 days, and I went on several cycles of that, 8 cycles of that. And before I was like, you know what? This is not good. Why am I doing
Yeah.
this? Yeah.
Yeah, you basically just got to that point where you're like, it's not worth it anymore.
Yeah. That was part of it. And the other part was just is like, I don't like the person I've become. I don't want to do and seriously, that is literally what I said to myself that day. I said, I don't like the person I've become, and I don't want to do this anymore. And that was it. And I mean, I tell you, it sounds like, oh boy, that was easy. Well, I can tell you it wasn't easy. There was a lot of stuff that went into saying that. And then after that, though, it was easy. And maybe because I went through so many quick relapses at the end, it made it easier because from there, I never had I want to have a drink. And because of my own method, and this is the crazy one that a lot of people don't understand how I've got to this point, but I think it's because I've completely disconnected myself from the interaction with alcohol, is that I actually can now go out with friends to a bar and have a water or an iced tea while they're drinking. And I literally have no interest in drinking whatsoever. I have a great time with my friends. And these are new friends. These aren't my old drunk friends, but these are new friends. But it's allowed me to interact in a life and a lifestyle without being an encumbrance on their lifestyle. And
Yeah.
so it's not, it's like, oh, we have to make an exception because Moss is coming with us and none of us can drink tonight. I don't want to ever hear that. I'm like, I show up and I have a good time with them, and they forget that I'm not even drinking. As a matter of fact, I think I'm probably more fun now that I'm not a drunk.
You basically, like, I think you read my mind there. That's the question I was going to ask, is if you're able to now let go places where there are drinks available. And I'd imagine that'd be a difficult thing to do.
No, it isn't. But I did slow walk this. Okay, like look, we're 9 years and a couple months down the road from me being sober. So this is something that at about 5 years, I started being like, okay, I'll go to dinner with this group of guys, and I know they're going to drink, and I'm not going to say anything. And a couple of them were like, hey, we don't have to drink if you don't want us to. I'm like, I don't care. And just to see, it was a test. I was like literally testing myself to see if it would trigger me. I knew I could leave at any time, and I was strong enough to know that I wouldn't drink. I would just leave. But I was like, I made it through without feeling triggered. I was like, So then I just pushed myself a little bit more until I felt comfortable to literally, I can walk straight into a bar now where, everyone is drinking and having a good time and interact like I did when I was a drunk, except now I see how silly I must have been as a drunk.
You get to enjoy a different side of it, I guess.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Because now I have my brain intact, so you get to play around and have fun with the people that are a little inebriated.
Yeah. So you mentioned this is like a new group of friends that you go out with.
hmm
Did you have to leave your old group behind? Like, what did that look like?
Yeah, I talk about this a lot. Is that one of the hardest things that we do? All of us humans do it. Is that we latch on to people and we don't want to let them go. And that is one of the hardest things that I think a lot of people who are addicts struggle with, is that the group of friends that they were friends with before, they don't want to lose those friendships. And being alone, it sucks. It's hard. And so I had to leave those friends behind. And for a long time, they would call like, "Oh yeah, why don't you come hang out? We'll party and do." And I'm like, "Nope, not gonna do it." Like, "Oh, but you're the life of the party. Come." I know that's part of the problem. That's why I'm not going to come and hang out with you. And then eventually that they just stopped calling. And there was a period of time, probably the first almost 2 years, where, I mean, making friends as an adult is tough. It is tough because we don't make friends like you do when you're kids. And the people that you do make friends with quickly when you're an adult, you're generally in an activity you're doing something with. And in a lot of adult activities, that involves drinking. Just think about all the different things from bowling to, froth to golf to,
Yeah.
literally you cannot get away from it. That became the hardest part. But then as I made what I did at that point is I assembled a group of guy friends that, and I said, this would be helpful to me. Can we like all get together and we'll have like a rotating cast? And my best friend was like, who stood by me through all of my, like, he knew me when I was a drunk and he's still friends with me. He was like, I'll form this group with you and we'll bring in other people. And each week we'll have this, or each month we'll have a rotating like cast of characters that'll go to dinner with us. And that's what we did. And I tell you what, it was one of the greatest things ever because it brought a lot of people in and it allowed them to see me now sober. Because some of these people had known me before, and like, I don't want anything to do with Moss. He's just a mess, And then that really rebuilt my confidence to know that I could go out and make new friends. And then the momentum really got going where now you have that confidence to just make friends.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I've told my wife that if I ever like something ever happened to us and I would be in trouble because I don't think I have any social skills anymore.
They're in there. They're in there. I tell you what, there's a lot of camaraderie out there I think I stumbled on something because our little group of guy friends, which is made up of, a couple dozen rotating cast of characters with like a core group of like 3 or 4 of us. I mean, it's great. Everyone's like, when's the next guys' night? And I was in Kansas City, living in Kansas City when this all started. I'm in Lincoln, Nebraska now. And it's funny, I was the organizer of these. I'm still the organizers of these. We've had guys' nights now in Omaha and Lincoln and Topeka, Kansas City, St. Louis. I mean, like now it goes all over the place. And we actually like caravan to go wherever the guys' night is and meet up and, have dinner, play cards. It's a great time. And those friendships are really what like truly keep you going then. So you'd do it. You'd find a way. Hey, you can join my guys' night. We'll travel out to see you.
Yeah, if you did that, I would join. As far and with 3 little kids though too, it's far few in between that I could go out too much just because they're the age group where it's just hard for like to for my wife to do it all or just most of the time my days like go to work and then I switch my wife out and she goes and has a little bit of her free time to do something.
Right,
I'm like,
exactly.
well, at least you have the free time. I have to work all day. But I wouldn't really say that she's sitting around doing nothing. She's doing other things like helping.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, I have something, and then it just skipped me. Oh yeah. If possible, would you be willing to like kind of walk us through how the sober method works?
Sure, absolutely. So, as I mentioned at the top of the podcast, that SOBER stands for Stoic, Observe, Behavior, Execute, and Restore. And for those who may have ever worked in manufacturing or any place where you've done continuous improvement, like PDCA, or might be familiar with the Deming cycle, this is used in manufacturing where you look at a problem, you try to figure out how to solve it, you test your hypothesis, and then you execute. And so that's basically exactly how the sober method works. We start with stoicism. So my recommendation always is pick up a copy of Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. It's a great starting point. And the reason I like Meditations, it's probably the best known like Stoic publication, but I like it because it says a lot about Marcus Aurelius. Here you have a the most powerful person on earth 2,000 years ago. This would be akin to like the president of the United States, like writing a diary and telling you how vulnerable he is. Cause that's basically what meditations is. It's like, this is something that's wrong with me. And, how am I going to correct this? How am I going to deal with this? So the recommendation is you start with a passage in Meditations. And we kind of touched on one already, so I'll use this as an example. And I'm going to misquote this verse, but it's basically when someone says something to you, take a look at the man that says it. Do you value their opinion? Do you trust them? Because only thing that matters is if their opinion only matters basically if it has value to you. And so taking that as your baseline, you want to reflect on a point in your life where you had someone else's opinion sway something that you did. So then you go and you journal about this and you think about it. It was like, okay, well, if this happened and this happened and this happened, and then you look for the commonality in that. Okay, this is impacting me because I'm insecure when people tell me that I am bald. Okay, well, I guess that this is a problem. So how am I going to look at the world differently? So that's where we're pushing into the observe step. So you're observing how you're reacting when people tell you that you're bald. I don't know why I picked baldness, but I did. Apologies to anyone on this that is bald. Anyway, and so this is you will look at how this impacts you. What happens in your mind when someone says this to you? Well, generally speaking, we're dealing with addiction. So people probably lean into their addiction. They want to drink, they want to smoke, they want to use whatever it is. This is having that impact on them. How can I diffuse this situation and do something better? How can I channel that into something good? That's when we're looking at your behavior and mapping that behavior out and trying to say, okay, the next time that somebody says this, instead of going, oh man, I need a shot, or I need to escape this in some form or fashion, you chart out a new behavior that you're going to do instead, whether that's read or respond in a lighthearted way that diffuses it in your mind, whatever it might be. So this is your remapping. Now you're going to go test it. Well, you can't really necessarily test this other than walking up to somebody and asking them, specifically. So you just kind of have to wait for that to happen. That's the execute step. If whatever you decided to try to use to diffuse that behavior or diffuse the reaction, the trigger in that behavior, if it works, fantastic. If it doesn't, you go back to the observe step. What happened this time? I reacted differently. I wanted to do this. I wanted to punch the guy instead of take a drink. Oh, well, I guess that's progress, right? So now you'll like rehome that and then test it again. Once you move through the execute step, you're moving to restore. So now this is somewhat like the making amends process. You're looking to see how this particular behavior impacted negatively anyone in your life previously. So maybe you took this out on somebody, you did something. So you're going to go, and this is what I always recommend in these cases. You don't want to be friends with somebody that is like this, but you do at least want to make the apology. It's like, great, see ya, have a nice life. I mean, like, I'm kind of glazing over it, but the big thing is that these people are no longer in your life for a reason. You're restoring yourself, not the relationship. And that's a very important distinction there. And then once you've done that, and that might be 5 or 6 people that you have to go attend to that particular deal, you go back to the stoic step and you look for something else to correct about yourself. And then you move forward and test. And as you go through this over and over and over again, at first you're chewing off like huge chunks of like, oh, this is my biggest trigger, I better attack this. To then you're like in little small stuff that, like I was mentioning earlier, like literally right now I'm dealing with cashiers that don't pay attention when I'm trying to interact with them. Like that annoys me. And like, it doesn't make me want to drink, but it annoys me. And then I outwardly show my frustration, and then they see my frustration and they get lippy with me. And then, and so I'm trying to rework my behavior so I get a positive reaction out of cashiers. I know this sounds like a silly thing to work on, but it's like, that's where I'm using my own method to like try to make every little aspect of my life better. So
Yeah. Oh, I would personally need to work on that because it gets really annoying when it's like you're trying to check out somewhere and yeah, I could
You can
Totally
you
understand
can
that. I
relate,
can
right?
relate. I totally.
You're like, do you work here, or like, what is going on with you? I mean,
How long have you?
you're checking your phone at the same time you're scanning stuff. How is this a thing?
How long have you been doing this?
Yes. Yeah, so that's how it works. That makes sense?
That's really cool.
Yeah. It's easy. I think it's easy to follow. And the great thing about the sober method that sets it apart is that you're seeing each one of these steps and you're holding yourself accountable. The biggest thing that I always encourage is that we no longer go around and say and affirm that we're alcoholics. I never, ever, ever. That's one thing I have a real problem with the traditional AA and NA method is that everywhere else in mental health, you never affirm that you are something. And so why do we stand up in meetings and say I'm an alcoholic or I'm a drug addict? That's just the wrong method to
Yeah,
you want to say positive things. And I remember when I really stepped away and I haven't been back to an AA meeting since. I went to get my 5-year and I stood up and I refused to say it. And I was asked to leave. And I said, well, I'm not an alcoholic. I'm like, well, yes, you are. I'm like, no, I'm not. I haven't even thought about alcohol. Like an alcoholic would be in here, like it
yeah.
totally, it works against it in your mind because if I'm constantly every day and I'm an alcoholic, well, okay, yeah, okay, where's the drink?
Where's the drink? Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
so
Like
it doesn't make
that
sense.
actually that actually does what you said does make sense. Like I can totally see where you're coming from saying that. It's like on the mental health side of it, I've always been told don't say I have anxiety, say this and this gives me anxiety.
Exactly. Yes. Yes. And if we do that in every other area of mental health, and we all agree that addiction is an affliction of mental health, which it is, then why are we treating it so differently in this one minor subset of mental health? And I think it's just because it became tradition because of the way that the 12-step programs work. And nobody has stopped to think that maybe that this is a little backwards.
Yeah. Yeah, I bet that's exactly what it is. It's just so set into stone and that's how it's been done for years and years.
Yeah. And because it is the best known and most widely used. And so that's why I'm out teaching the sober method, because I feel that this is a great alternative to AA, and I just trying to get the message out so more people give it a shot.
So, what would you say is next in your mission to bring hope and healing to others through your story and work?
Well, the big thing that I'm doing is at the encouragement of my private clients is that I'm taking this onto the web and I'm going to start offering some big group type classes and workshops and daily work for people at my website sobermethod.com. So that's going live here within the next month. So by the 4th of July, hopefully you can declare independence from your addiction. That would be great, huh?
Awesome. I love that you're pushing forward and doing everything you can to help people out.
Yeah, yeah, I got to keep going. I mean, the eventuality here is that I would really like to see this into an actual like digital app on the phone where people have the capability to support one another around the globe at any point. That, you may have a sponsor in a 12-step program, but you can't always reach your sponsor. Wouldn't it be great if you could reach somebody anytime you really needed a little support?
Yeah, for sure. And so this was a question, and I always say the same thing. It's kind of generalized. And if you listen to my podcast, you know this is coming. What would you say is the biggest stigma to mental health?
That we're broken people, and that I think that that's the hardest thing that we all deal with, is that we're never fixed, that there is something inherently wrong and broken with us. And even when we find ways to live productively in society, we're held back in other people's eyes. And that's something I work really hard to try to break through, especially in what I was just saying about not saying that you're an alcoholic, not saying that you're a drug addict. Don't own what you are today. Own that you're healthy. Own the fact that you're a sober person. I'm sober. That's something to be proud of. And I'm stable. I'm capable. I might have all of these battle wounds, Yet I would argue that those that have struggled with mental health and addiction and come out on top are probably far stronger than almost anybody else you know. So give them a shot.
Awesome. Love it. Love it. And yeah, I think I've met a lot of like very strong individuals by even starting this, and I can attest to that,
Yeah, I bet you have.
including yourself.
Oh, well, thank you, sir.
The stories that I hear just really like inspire me. So, how can people find you?
As I mentioned, sobermethod.com is the website. I'm on all social media handles at Sober Method. Just about a month ago, I started a subreddit at Sober Method, and it's starting to grow. I interact with people out there. That's kind of a fun little avenue that I've been working and commenting in other groups for over a year daily. And one day I just got the idea. It's like, why don't I just start my own little thing and see who comes here? So that's going now. And it's kind of fun because I'm keeping up with people's progress. And I think that it's helpful because it's anonymous. And that's where it struggles a lot in the other areas of social media and that you try to do outreach, is that a lot of people don't necessarily want to subscribe and follow you because then people will know that they're struggling with addiction. And a lot of people struggle with addiction in the dark. And that's a horrible thing. That again, it's because we've given and assigned the stigma to the challenges that are faced by people who are struggling as being negative. And if we were able to see this as potentially positive, that their brains just work differently than you, that I think that strength could actually shine through. And I hope one day that I get that message through.
I actually could see that being a huge thing is people struggling in the dark, and I think it's like important that we continue to push, whether it's addiction or mental health, continue to share stories to make it known that like it's okay to be open about it. It's okay to go to therapy. Like it's you're not alone in this battle.
Yeah. Yeah, it's okay. And I think that if you look back and like 20 years ago, there was a lot more stigma to it than there is today. There's a relative fair amount of acceptance in the Western world, at least, for those who struggle with these sorts of things. Yet it doesn't carry over into forgiveness of things when it comes to getting hired for a job. And those things can continue to hold you back. And I hope that more people give chances to those who have these things in their past, those that own businesses and are in a position to hire people. Give people a shot. I tell you, when someone has come back from addiction and it looks like they're on the road to a lifelong recovery, they're going to work harder than anybody else to prove that to you. And they'll probably be the best employees you ever hired, quite
Yeah,
frankly.
yeah, and you can speak to that from experience. So yeah, that's
Yeah, I definitely can speak from experience.
and it's like I feel like there's too many situations where those people are not given a chance.
Me too.
So
Me too, which is a shame.
absolutely. Is there anything that you'd like to discuss that we have not covered?
I don't think so, but if I could just end by saying that everybody that's listening right now, I want you to know that if you're struggling with addiction, bipolar disorder, or any challenge in your life, that you alone have the power within you to make your life better. You have to decide that it is time to do something about it. And the best time to do that is right now, because someday is a road to nowhere, and you get on and do something today. Tomorrow is going to be a great day.
Very well said. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to come on to the show. I've really enjoyed our conversation and have learned a great deal from you. And you're make me want to try a few things myself to better myself. So I thank you for that.
You bet. Thank you so much, Travis, for having me on.
Yeah, my pleasure. And thank you to all the listeners out there. The best thing you could do for us right now is follow us on all the social media platforms. Mainly, we're on YouTube and Instagram is where I spend most of my time. But please share our stuff, follow us, subscribe, like it, just get the word out there. Thanks again for listening. Until next time.